Welcome, friends. Um, this is a little more challenging than I thought when I agreed to give today's sermon. Today's going to have some elements of Sunday school, including props. In the recent version of Sense and Sensibility movie, Hugh Grant plays a young preacher who tells Emma Thompson, "I'd like a small parish where I could do some good, keep chickens, and give very short sermons." I've never been compared to Hugh Grant before, so I will try and do my best today. I've given Sunday school lessons for years here, and I've learned so much more about Scripture and the Bible by being a teacher as opposed to a student growing up in my hometown of Buffalo, New York. And I always start every class with a globe, because I point out to the students, which were usually middle schoolers, that what we're talking about actually occurred. This is the place where things happen. These are real people, most of them are historical, and I talk about the history and the geography of the biblical stories. And to them, one of the things I learned is that the distance between Nazareth and Bethlehem that Joseph and Mary had to go in order to have the birth and the nativity is the same distance for us to have walked from here to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is like, wow, that's a distance. But some of the kids really got enthused to find out that it's a 2-day walk that Mary and Joseph had to go. It wasn't just the next town over. Now, by coincidence, this is also the 25th anniversary of our family joining the Good Shepherd Parish in 2001, soon after we moved from New York to Glen Rock. And I have a lot of thoughts stored up, but only a few minutes to share them with you today. After being raised in the very Roman Catholic city of Buffalo, New York, I really didn't know anyone who wasn't Catholic until I went off to college. And it was at college that I missed my very first Sunday Mass and was mildly disappointed that I wasn't hit by a lightning bolt. But then I started to collect thoughts and quotes by the great thinkers of history on how they thought about faith and how they thought about Christianity in particular. So like Elijah in the cave, I listened and tried to hear the whisper of God's presence in the world. Socrates said an unexamined life is not worth living. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius had said, if there are gods and they are just, then they will not care how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you have lived by. In a cheeky statement, Voltaire said, I believe because it is absurd. And one of my favorites is St. Augustine, who apparently said, oh Lord, give me chastity, but not yet. So only recently, I also discovered that Thomas Jefferson wrote his own version of the New Testament, where he edited out the miracles and only concentrated and kept the principles of morality and ethics in Jesus' teachings. And so when I mentioned this to Pastor Jay, he surprised me by bringing out his own copy of the Jefferson Bible that we have in his library. So if you're interested, it is available to be read. But from what I can tell, Jefferson did not include today's gospel in his version of the Bible. Well, we didn't have the Jefferson Bible in my hometown, in my home growing up in Buffalo. We did have our own Bible that we read the nativity story from Luke every Christmas Eve before presents were opened. But we also had this, the Gospel according to Peanuts. And as a youngster, I was a huge fan of this comic strip. And its author, Charles Schulz, included both subtle and explicit quotes from the Bible and his musings on faith in the strips, including one of the ones that I handed is in your handout that we passed around today. I still remember watching the original premiere of Charlie Brown's Christmas in December 1965. Yes, I am that old. And I can't think of a better reading of the Nativity story than the version that Linus gives on the cartoon stage 60 years ago. It should surprise no one, but I am Linus in my family. Even my daughters know to give me Linus gifts at Christmas. I do have an older sister who can be Lucy sometimes. In some ways, the 50s and 60s were full of Hollywood movies based on biblical themes like the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, Shoes of the Fisherman. Even the Catholic Bishop Sheen had a primetime television show in the 50s and 60s called Life is Worth Living that competed against Milton Berle. And they joked about it often at Friar Roast. But it seems like we're not much in prime time anymore. Yet the community of Christians still make their presence known in the world today, even if it's in the funny pages. The Family Circus comic strip, the family still attends Sunday Christmas Catholic Mass, and even Marge Simpson gets her family to church on a regular basis. Stephen Colbert talks openly about teaching Sunday school in Montclair, and Father Mulcahy is a revered character in the TV show of MASH. Later in life, Charles Schulz described himself as a secular humanist, or something more like a biblical humanist, believing that there are others who are part of God's kingdom without even knowing it, without believing in Jesus. They are worshiping God through their heart, their attitudes, and their merciful actions, regardless of their theological beliefs. So, perhaps humanism can be defined as remembering that every person's life is of equal worth in God's eyes. After all, it is enshrined by Jefferson in our Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. So this is the community that I belong to and I adhere to. And I feel that we are the anointed keepers of this legacy, that we must be like Linus, lighting a candle against the darkness in our world and hold true to our mission and keep the faith. So I'm going to leave you with a homework assignment to end this lesson. We all have to admit there's just too much negative news when you open up your phone every morning. And to counter this, I recommend getting a free subscription to the Mutts comic strip by Patrick McConnell. Every morning when I have my morning coffee, I get an email from him with a daily chuckle, like the one that you see in the handout I passed around, but he also includes a quote or message from the thinkers of history, including Emily Dickinson, Maya Angelou, and many other positive thinkers. My favorite quote that he often repeats is from the medieval monk: "If all you do today is remember to say thanks, that should be sufficient." So if you're interested, copies of the instruction to get this free email are handed out. Class dismissed.